My name's Dale Fox, and welcome to all of you. So just a little bit of bio about me and how I come to be doing this work. Way back, long time, just after the Rinderpest. I was a member of Professor Chris Barnard's heart transplant team. And in 1979, my dad, at the age of 59, died very suddenly of a brain tumor. And he had a steel and engineering business. And my mum was left with this business up in Pretoria, and I asked her if I could come and take over the business. And she said to me, "What do you know about engineering?" And my reply was, well, if you take a heart out of one chest and you put it in another chest, and it works, that really works on engineering principles. And I spent the next 30 years in the steel and engineering world. And during that time, I had come back to Cape Town and started another business. Around about 1998, I was having dinner with some friends of mine, but I realized something interesting that evening, because I couldn't contribute to the conversation. I couldn't think of anything to say. And I realized that night that I was actually suffering from cognitive decline, which is a sophisticated way of saying my brain was rotting from lack of use, because I was in such a left brain world. And I decided to go back to university. So I went back to university and I got my degrees in psychology. And along the way, I studied Jungian psychology. So a lot of this work is about Jungian psychology, and don't be fazed by that. It's about the metaphors and the archetypes that inform our lives. Which brings me to this picture here. This picture has traveled all over Africa and all over the world with me. It was drawn by the daughter of my coordinator in Pretoria, and I taught there last weekend. At the time, she was 9 years old. And so I give the talk on a Friday night, and she said to me, "I'd like to do a drawing for your talk." I said, "Please do." And because I am a Jungian analyst, the moment I saw it, I knew what it was all about. But I invited her up to come and explain it. 9-year-old kids are just so amazing. She's 13 now. And I said, "You know, this is Jessica Stradom, and please tell the people about the drawing." And she said, "Sure." She said, "Well, this is about the yin and the yang stuff in our web of life." She said, "This, of course, is a butterfly. And a butterfly, if you didn't know, is about metamorphosis." She said, "All these things here are our DNA stuff that connect us all to everything." And she said, of course, we have to have heart energy to connect us as well. She said, "This is a vine." And she stood there and she said, "And you know, vines will do whatever they have to do to get to where they want to be. They'll go through walls, over things, under things, but they'll just keep going to get to where they want to be." And then she wrote there, "What more can we do with our minds, and are we using the whole of it? Think beyond." That's a 9-year-old child. We all used to be in that space. It's called the alpha mind, the right brain way of doing things. So if we look at what's happening to us in the world, I realize that at a very rapid pace, people's consciousness is shifting. And if you even think about human beings, how we have evolved, going all the way back to Australopithecus, Homo erectus, Homo habilis, until today Homo sapiens, all of that evolution has actually allowed our brains to grow as well. So our brains have grown as we've grown and developed. And it's quite interesting, this amazing brain of ours. There's not a computer on this planet that can or ever will be able to do what the human brain and mind's capable of. And actually, the human brain is so incredible that it's been shown that it can change substantially. So it grows, but as it develops, it can also deteriorate from lack of use, except when you're really right at the end of your life. And even if you use your brain really well, right up to the end of your life, will deteriorate only minimally. There's a wonderful neuroscientist by the name of Professor Susan Greenfield, who's done incredible research and shown just what happens to our brain because of things we do to our brains. Substances, food that we take in, the EMFs, all of this electromagnetic stuff, fields around us. There's always unintended consequences to everything. Every development has an advantage, but there is also a downside. And if you think about modern technology today, it's changed our lives completely. It's wonderful. The developments that have happened are absolutely amazing. But there's a downside too, because it means that we are using our brains less and less. We're finding that you're having earlier and earlier diabetes in children. You're having earlier senility in people because they're not using their brains. And what's more, those wonderful technological innovations are supposed to give us more time. So let's see by a show of hands, how many of you have actually got more time? So we become overwhelmed by the things around us, and what Susan Greenfield has shown is that your brain changes substantially by the things you're doing to it. And that's kind of scary. Huh? Why should your brain deteriorate before it's ready? If you look at the pyramid societies, the Aztecs, the Incas, the Peruvians, the Egyptians, all of them built their pyramids in exact representation to certain constellations. Mathematically accurate. How did they do that? I have been to Mexico. I have seen those incredible pyramids there. We don't have the modern technology today to lift those very accurately cut granite blocks. And that stone doesn't even come from that area. How did they do that? What have we lost along the way? So as we've progressed, there's become a regression. And we went into the Dark Ages. And then there was the whole thing about power play, who would have the knowledge. So religion came in, and I've got nothing against religion. It's the dogma around religion that caused people to become less and less aware. So that today people are using so little of their brains and their minds. What is the mind? It's a concept, really. You know, I've got degrees in anatomy and physiology, but you can scratch around in all the skulls you like, in all the brains you like. No one yet has pinpointed, oh, there's the mind, because it's a concept. The mind really is a concept that helps us form our worldview. So how we create our world is through our senses. We use our eyes, our ears, our nose, touch, taste, to give us information. That information comes in, goes to the brain interprets it, and it's the mind that creates something. The left half of the brain looks physiologically after the right side of the body's functioning, and vice versa. So if people have a stroke and they're paralyzed on the left, it means that somewhere on the right there's a lesion. So what we think we are seeing, what's really happening is that energy in the form of light, or called photons, comes at us, goes through the pupil, hits the back of the retina, and what comes in at the left eye is in fact interpreted in the right occipital area of the brain. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? And the interesting thing is that it doesn't matter how many photons hit the back of your retina, you're still only going to see what you choose to see, or not. So what we're going to start experiencing this weekend is a look into the quantum world, the world of quantum physics. Now that sounds pretty daunting, but actually quantum physics is very simple. In fact, life is very simple. The complexities in life are our stuff. And to look into this quantum world, we're going to have to do a little bit of paradigm shifting. Are you all familiar with paradigms? Do you know what a paradigm means? Huh? What a paradigm means is how we create our worldview. So Jung was great on this. He looked at us as being people with a collective conscious and a collective unconscious. And he saw the collective consciousness as our universal egos that bind us all. The collective unconscious is our inherited potential from all our forefathers and the things like that, which kind of explains why Italians like spaghetti, South Africans for some reason like rugby, Greek women have got moustaches. So it's that collective consciousness stuff. Yeah. That's all your inherited potential that comes through, which allows you to recognize people in different parts of the world. There's just that something you know, that's a South African or whatever. And that's what he looked at. So if we are looking at how we work as beings, how we've created our worldview is based on our belief systems. I'm not talking religion, I'm talking about our values and mores, and religion comes into it, but it's really part of it. So our belief systems are based on our inherited potential, the archetypes that we have. And the brain's very, very adept at being lazy. Because once the brain is in auto, it looks for ratification to believe the stuff it believes, and our minds help it. So we become stereotypical, and we start limiting ourselves. There's only this way to do it, they're wrong, the in-group and the out-group, and all of that stuff. So in fact, we don't actually see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. What Carl Jung spoke about too was about the concept of synchronicity. And synchronicity is a little bit like what we talk about coincidence. There is no such a thing as coincidence. All coincidence really means is joining two incidences. Carl Jung looked at synchronicity in that things are always connecting somehow in this great web of life. I'm sure you've experienced something. I want to phone my friend Mandy. I walk to the phone. As I approach the phone starts ringing. I pick it up. I say, "Hi, it's Dale." "Hi, it's Mandy here." I was just going to phone you. Have any of you had those experiences? And we say, what a coincidence. It's not. What's happening here is something in the web of life and the quantum world. It's called entrainment. Because thought is energy. We are all energy. Every single cell in your body, and this is basic physics and anatomy, has got a positive and a negative charge. Every single bit of energy in this planet has got a nucleus and has got an atom, and it has at least a proton and a neutron, and all of that stuff is in spin. We also talk about the extrasensory perceptions that we have. We all have that. These senses, if you can learn to heighten your sensory awareness, your world is never going to be the same. You're all doing the course this weekend, I promise you. After tomorrow, you're never, ever, after tonight, you're never going to be the same. Because you're going to learn how to tap into this incredible way of being. Ed Mitchell, Apollo 14 astronaut, a scientist and astronaut, was busy doing some work with a biologist by the name of Dr. Joseph B. Ryan, who was working on the extrasensory nature of human consciousness. Ed Mitchell, in Apollo 14, 250,000 miles above Earth, was doing an experiment with Ryan and his colleagues who were sitting in their laboratory in Houston, Texas. Ed Mitchell had a pack of cards called the Zener cards. They look like playing cards, but they've got shapes on them, so rounds, squares, rectangle. And at a certain time, each orbit, he would shuffle the cards and lay them out in a sequence. And then he'd look at tonight's sequence, and he would think the sequence down to Earth. When Apollo 14 landed, they had a 90% accuracy rate. That is beyond mathematical probability. And today they've replicated those experiments over and over and over again. We all have those capabilities. Imagine the cost from grade 1 to grade 12, and then maybe even going on to university. How many hundreds of thousands of rands does that cost? And all they do is teach you how to use your left brain. And you can spend 2 days here and you learn to use your whole brain. You see, the left brain is the reactive world. It's the button pushing stress. The taxi cuts in front of you and you freak out. And where did that guy get his license? And you jump up and down and he's laughing. Taxi drivers, I love them. They're the most right-brained people on this planet because they can create a gap where no gap exists. And you have a heart attack instead of admiring them. So that overreaction that gets your adrenaline pumping and your heart racing, he's cool. And you're using some interesting sign language and he waves back in, hey, chom, you got that. He's so happy. If you are living in that left brain, high beta stuff all the time, it's very stressful. If you can learn how to come into a right brain, you're not going to lose your left brain, by the way. You're going to still have your logic. You're actually going to experience life in a different way altogether. I've been doing this work for a long time. I'm not the person I was when I started it. I used to have a wick about this long. 30 years in the steel industry. I started in 1979 as a woman. You can imagine. So I had to work hard. I had to work harder and be really smart. So I had a wick this long. It only needed a little bit of hot air around me. And boy, I really don't get my buttons pushed anymore. I've learned to live in alpha. I am healthy. I never get sick, I never get headaches, and I don't look bad for 85 either, so it just shows you body talk and MindScape. It's always the women who fall for it, never the men. So it doesn't matter what you do in life. Even if you're a housewife, you're an imaginative, creative, intuitive person. And when you learn to do MindScape and you practice this stuff, you come to realize what absolutely amazing beings you are with unlimited potential. I consider it such an honor and privilege to do this work. There are 15 of us in the world qualified to teach this, and I am so honored to be one of them. So I look forward to sharing this adventure with you.